Two engineers, same degree, same starting salary, same year. 10 years later, one earns around $115,000. The other earns over 780,000. Same intelligence, same work ethic, same starting point. So what happened in those 10 years? That's what I spent the last 6 months trying to find out. I sat down with 10 AI engineers. 1 year in, 4 years in, 7 years in, 10 years in, and I asked them the questions nobody answers honestly on LinkedIn. What are you actually paid? What did you get wrong? And what do you know now that you'd give anything to have known then? By the end of this video, you'd have the complete map, every phase, every salary band, every trap. But I'll warn you about three things right now. Three things that surprised me so much. I almost restructured the whole series. 1. The skill that gets you hired is the same skill that gets you stuck. I'll explain that in the skills section. 2. Imposter syndrome doesn't peak in year 1, it peaks in year 3. And the reason why changes how you should plan your career. 3. I asked every single engineer if AI will replace AI engineers. Their answers were nearly unanimous, and it's not the answer you're expecting. That one's at the end. Don't skip to it. The context matters. This is the AI engineer roadmap. Year 1 to year 10. Real people, real numbers, real mistakes. Let's go. Before we go further, one number you need to sit with. Right now, across the market, only about 2.5% of AI engineering job postings are looking for someone with 0 to 2 years of experience. That's not a typo. Junior hiring at the big tech companies is down roughly 25% from 2023. New graduate postings have fallen almost 30% from their peak. The door didn't just get smaller, it got narrow. So if you're 1 year in or still trying to get in, this isn't a coincidence and it isn't a reflection of you. It's the phase you're playing in right now. And it's exactly why survival looks different than it did even 2 years ago. Keep that in your pocket. We're coming back to it. Quick calibration so you know whether to invest the next 20 minutes. This is for you. If any of these sound familiar, is AI engineering a real career or a hype cycle that's about to correct? I applied for 40 roles and heard back from 2. Why? What does a staff engineer actually do all day and could I ever be one? What should someone in Bangalore or Berlin or Lagos realistically expect to earn? This is not a tutorial. I'm not teaching you PyTorch. I'm not selling you a course. There's nothing to buy. This is 10 people at 10 different points on the same road, turning around and telling you what's ahead. That information doesn't exist in any bootcamp. It barely exists on this platform. That's why I made it. Here's the single most important thing I learned across all 10 interviews. This career doesn't move in a straight line. It moves in 4 phases, and each phase is a completely different game with completely different rules. Most people plateau because they keep playing the last phase's game. The junior who's still trying to look smart at year 4, the senior who's still trying to be the hero at year 8. Let me show you all 4 phases. Then we go deep on each one. Phase 1, survival. Year 0 to 2. This is the phase everyone romanticizes and nobody prepares you for. You land the job thinking you'll be training models. You spend 70% of your time writing data pipelines. And here's the twist nobody had 5 years ago. That plumbing work is exactly what AI coding assistants are eating first. In some companies, they are already handling a third to half of routine implementation work. So phase 1 isn't just harder to get into. Once you're in, it compresses faster than it used to. Every single engineer said some version of the same sentence. I thought I'd be doing AI. I was doing plumbing. That's not a complaint. That is the job. Year 1 isn't about intelligence. It's about learning how production systems actually work. Not in a notebook. In the real world, the people who accept that early move twice as fast. The rules of this phase: absorb everything, ship small things reliably, and build a reputation as someone who finishes. Because the routine execution around you is increasingly done by a model, not by headcount. Reputation compounds faster than raw skill in year 1. Phase 2. Credibility, year 2 to 4. This is where careers fork, acceleration or plateau. And the difference between the two is one word: ownership. The engineers who grow fast in this window raise their hand and say, I'll own that. And then they own it, end to end. Messy, middle included. When it breaks at 2 a.m., it's their name on it. That's the price. That's also the point. The skills that separate mid from junior aren't technical, they're behavioral. Can you scope your own work? Can you kill your own bad idea before someone else has to? Can you write a design doc? A senior engineer actually respects. Phase 3. Expansion. Year 4 to 7. Senior is the most misunderstood title in engineering. It doesn't mean you know more. It means your impact radius is wider. You're not just shipping code. You're reviewing it. You're not just solving problems. You're deciding which problems deserve solving. You're not just sitting in meetings. You're the reason the meeting reaches a decision. And here's the plot twist of this decade. The large language model era reshuffled this level completely. A few years ago, senior meant classical machine learning, regression, trees, deep nets. Today, it means transformers, RAG, fine tuning, agents, evils, and the production systems that run them at scale. Some of yesterday's seniors are effectively juniors again on this stack. We talk about that in episode 4. Phase 4. Architect. Year 7 to 10 and beyond. At staff and principal level, the job description quietly inverts. You are no longer measured by what you build. You are measured by what you enable. Your mistakes aren't bugs anymore. They are architectural decisions that can slow an entire org down for a quarter. The weight is different. The visibility is different. And most engineers who get here were not ready for that change. Not everyone needs to reach this phase. Some of the happiest engineers I interviewed deliberately stopped at senior. We cover that too, because Climb Forever is advice sold by people who profit from your anxiety. Now the section you probably came for, the money. 2026 numbers. I'm going to give you two sets, one global and one for India specifically, because adjust 30 to 60% for geography is lazy and you deserve real numbers globally in US dollars. Junior 0 to 2 years. Base of 115 to 170,000. Total com 150 to 220,000. Reality check. Those numbers look generous. But remember the 2.5%. There are very few of these seats and competition for each one has gone up sharply. Mid-level 2 to 5 years. Base of 170 to 240. Total com 230 to 380. This is where equity starts mattering and where picking a specialization starts paying for itself. Senior 5 to 8 years. Base of 220 to 310. Total com 340 to 550. The frontier AI labs push well past that. Staff 8 to 12 years. Base of 280 to 400,000. Total com 500,000 to 800,000. RSS are the real variable here. And principal 10 plus years at the top labs. Total com from 700,000 past 1.2 million. Rare, but real and getting less rare every year. Now India. In rupees, lakhs per annum, current numbers. Freshers at services firms, 6 to 8 lakhs. Freshers at product companies or GCCs with a strong portfolio, 8 to 15. Mid-level, 15 to 30. Typical, 25 to 45 at the top GCCs and product companies. And here's the lever most people miss. Generative AI and LLM specialization adds 25 to 45% on top of those numbers. Same years of experience, same title, entirely different band because of one skill choice. Senior 35 to 55 lakhs, typical. Top of market, FANG India, leading GCCs, well-funded AI startups runs 55 to 80 lakhs. Staff and principal at the very top, 65 lakhs to 1.2 crore, where stock and specialization both stack on top of each other. And one more row that matters. US remote roles from India still pay close to US equivalent. That's the arbitrage everyone should know about. More on that in a minute. 3 things about these numbers that matter more than the numbers. First, the geography gap is closing and that changes your strategy. I talked to engineers in Bangalore, Berlin, Sao Paulo and Lagos earning close to US equivalent paid through US remote roles. 5 years ago, that was a unicorn story. Today, it's a repeatable path. If your written communication is strong, remember that. It comes back later. Second, from mid-level onwards, base salary is the least interesting number. The gap between a good offer and a life-changing offer is never the base. It's the equity structure, the vesting cliff, the refresh cycle. One engineer took a $20,000 lower base for a startup offer that paid out 4x in 2 years. Another did the exact opposite, took the safe salary and watched the startup equity he turned down go to zero. Both made a reasonable decision with the information they had. This is why we talk to real people. Spreadsheets lie. Stories don't. Third, every engineer past year 5 told me their biggest financial gains came from switching at the right moment, not from staying loyal. The right jump at the right phase is worth more than 3 years of laziness. When to jump and when jumping backfires, That's episode 3. Quick pause. If this is already more useful than your last career video, that subscribe button costs you nothing and tells me to make more of these. Okay, skills. This is where it gets uncomfortable. Remember the first thing I warned you about at the start. The skill that gets you hired is the same skill that gets you stuck. Here's what I meant. You get hired as a junior for one thing: technical execution, writing code, fixing bugs, completing tickets. And because that's what got you in, your brain decides that's what the game is forever. But the game changes every single phase. And execution is the only skill whose value goes down over time. It's being compressed by every AI tool shipping this year. Some companies are already routing a third to half of routine implementation work straight to a model. Judgment, communication, and problem selection are going up. The engineers who plateau are the ones still maximizing the skill. The market is actively devaluing. Here's what actually matters, phase by phase. Year 0 to 2, the foundation stack. The non-negotiables. Python fluency, idiomatic, not just functional. 1D framework. PyTorch is the current default. TensorFlow is still valid in legacy shops. Data manipulation. Pandas, SQL, Spark basics. Git, Linux, Docker fundamentals. And the ability to read a research paper without crying. What people think matters at this stage but doesn't yet. System design, architecture, machine learning at scale. Save that energy. The most underrated skill of year 1 is this: asking for help without wasting a senior engineer's time. Bad. It's not working. Can you look? Good. Here's what I expected. Here's what happened. Here are the 3 things I already tried. That one habit will make or break your reputation in your first 90 days. I'm not exaggerating. Year 2 to 4. Pick your spike. Everyone at this stage faces the same decision. Go deep on the model side or deep on the system side. Model side means fine-tuning, evil frameworks, RAG design, RLHF, and prompt engineering. Yes, it's a real skill. And yes, most people are bad at it. System side means MLOps, model serving, latency optimization, distributed training, and production monitoring. The best engineers eventually develop both. But in years 2 through 4, pick one and go deep. Generalists at this level are invisible. Specialists get noticed. And specialists are also the ones pulling that 25 to 45% premium we talked about in the salary section. Year 4 to 7. The skills nobody should call soft. Technical depth is table stakes at senior. The differentiators are these: writing, design docs, RFCs, postmortems, clear, structured, opinionated, communicating under uncertainty. I don't know, but here's exactly how I'll find out. Constructive pushback, disagreeing with a VP without burning the bridge, and cross-functional fluency. Speaking products language, being the bridge. And remember the US remote arbitrage from the salary section? This is the skill that unlocks it. Remote first companies hire globally based almost entirely on written communication. Your design doc is your visa. One senior engineer said something I haven't stopped thinking about. The engineers who plateau at senior see communication as a tax on their real work. The ones who advance realize communication is the work. Year 7 to 10 and beyond. The skill is judgment. Specifically, knowing which problems not to solve. Knowing when the right answer is, we shouldn't build that. Spotting a local maximum while your team is celebrating on top of it. Plus what I call organizational fluency. Understanding how decisions actually get made. How budgets actually get approved. And how to get an idea from your head into production without writing a single line of it yourself. That last skill takes years. And it's worth millions. This section wasn't in my original plan. I set out to document a technical progression. Somewhere around interview 5, I realized I was documenting a psychological one. Every engineer described a specific moment when how they thought about their work fundamentally changed. 4 moments, 4 shifts. And they're more valuable than any skill list I could give you. Year 1. I just need to not look stupid. That's the entire psychology of year 1. You're performing competence while actually acquiring it. That's normal. It's also exhausting. The engineers who escape this phase fastest are the ones who stop hiding what they don't know and get curious about it instead. Curiosity is faster than performance. Year 3 to 4. I need to prove I deserve to be here. Here's the payoff on my second warning from the start. Imposter syndrome doesn't peak in year 1. It peaks in year 3. Because in year 1, you don't know enough to see the gap. By year 3, you know exactly enough to understand how much you still don't know. And now you can see everyone who's ahead of you in high definition. Every engineer I interviewed confirmed this. Year 3 was the year they almost quit. The shift that unlocks year 4. Stop measuring yourself against everyone above you. Start measuring yourself against who you were 6 months ago. Direction matters more than pollution. Year 5 to 7. My success is now measured by others' success. This one breaks the most engineers. Because engineering culture worships individual heroics, the all-nighter, the prod incident save, the single-handed feature ship. At senior level, the heroics model actively hurts you. The engineers who reach staff are the ones who realize the most valuable thing I can do today is not write code. It's unblocking 3 stuck people. It's reviewing the design doc that's been sitting for 4 days. It's a 15-minute conversation that saves someone a week of wasted work. That's a brutal psychological shift for people who became engineers because they love building things with their own hands. Year 8 to 10. Is this even the right problem? The rarest mindset in any engineering organization. Not, how do I solve this? Not, who should solve this? But, should this be solved at all? One staff engineer told me. The best work I did last quarter was a 2-page memo that killed a 6-month project. Nobody thanked me. 6 months later, the chief product officer told me it was the most valuable thing anyone on the team did all year. That's the game at the top. The highest paid engineers are paid for the code that never gets written. Alright, the question I promised at the start. I asked all 10 engineers point blank. Will AI replace AI engineers? Here's the honest answer. Not the comfortable one. First, sit with this paradox. Computer science graduates broadly are facing something like a 6% unemployment rate right now. At the very same time, AI and machine learning roles are short, an estimated 500,000 qualified people. Same field on paper. Wildly different outcome. The gap between those two numbers is basically this entire video. The role is changing faster than most people will admit publicly. Tasks that took a week a few years ago take an afternoon now. Code generation has already transformed what a junior does day to day. Anyone telling you nothing will change is selling you something. But here's what the tools have not touched. Judgment, problem definition, and the ability to look at an AI's output and know whether it's actually right. The engineers who get displaced will be the ones who treat the job as executing defined tasks. The engineers who thrive will be the ones who decide which tasks deserve to be executed. That is not a subtle distinction. Automation compresses execution. It does not replace judgment. Build your career on judgment, and you're not just safe. You're becoming more valuable every year. The tools improve. And notice something. Everything in this video has been pointing here. The skill evolution. Execution down, judgment up. The mindset shifts from solve it to should we solve it. The salary numbers. The biggest money sits exactly where the judgment sits. The entire 10-year roadmap is one long migration from execution to judgment. The AI wave didn't change that path. It just made walking it urgent. One more thing, especially if you're watching from outside Silicon Valley. This market is global now, in a way it simply wasn't 5 years ago. The engineers I talked to in India, in Europe, in Africa, they're not waiting for permission anymore. They're joining remote first teams. They're building for their own markets. They're shipping products global companies can't. The open source tooling has never been better. The barriers have never been lower. The demand has never been higher. Don't let your pin code tell you what your ceiling is. Everything you just heard is the summary. The full stories, the details, the mistakes, the numbers are in the series. Episode 1, the first year. Surviving the reality gap. The rawest episode. A first year engineer on exactly what broke her expectations and how she got hired when only 1 in 40 postings even wanted a junior. Episode 2, year 2 to 3, breaking the junior ceiling. The plateau is real, he hit it. Here's the design doc, the ownership move, and the manager conversation that got him out. Episode 3, year 4, the specialization decision, machine learning or MLOps, startup or big tech, when to jump, when jumping backfires, and the framework she now uses for every career bet. Episode 4, year 5 to 6, what senior actually means. For everyone who just hit senior and feels weirdly empty about it, impact radius, leading without a title, and why some old guard seniors are starting over on this track. Episode 5, Year 7, The Fog. Management track or IC track from someone who chose management, hated it, went back, and says it was still worth it. Episode 6, Year 8 to 9, a staff engineer's actual week. The most requested episode I've ever had. Less code than you think, more writing than you'd believe. Episode 7, Year 10, Building at Scale, Building Wealth. Equity, RSS, compounding career decisions, and how one engineer crossed a $1.2 million net worth without ever founding anything. Episode 8, the global episode, India, Germany, Nigeria, Brazil. One conversation about what the rest of the world is doing that Silicon Valley is sleeping on. All episodes linked below. Just starting? Begin at episode 1. Mid career? Jump to 4 or 5. You will know within a minute if it's yours. Remember the two engineers from the start? Same degree, same starting salary. 115,000 versus 780. After 10 interviews, I can tell you the difference wasn't talent. It wasn't luck. It wasn't even hours worked. It was that one of them understood early that the game changes every phase and kept updating how they played. The other one got very good at year 2 and stayed there. When I asked every engineer if they'd choose this career again, almost everyone said the same thing. Absolutely. But I wish someone had told me it would look like this. That's what this series is. Consider it that person. Drop a comment with the year of your career you're in right now.